This influential king ruled England from 1509 to 1547. He radically altered the English constitution and oversaw the legal union of England and Wales. Among his more famous actions, he also turned England into a Protestant nation during the English Reformation by cutting all ties with the Roman Catholic Church. Believe it or not, he did this just so he could divorce his first of 6 wives, Catherine of Aragon. The historical figure we are hinting to is Henry VIII, monarch of England. But this speech is not about him. Rather, it is about the lives and often tragic deaths of 4 of his 6 wives, Catherine of Aragon, Anne Boleyn, Jane Seymour, and Catherine Parr.
When Catherine of Aragon, Henry's first wife, was just a child, her parents, Ferdinand and Isabella, joint rulers of Spain, decided that their daughter would marry Arthur, son of Henry VII. So, in 1501, at the age of 15, Catherine traveled to England. She married Arthur, who was King Henry's older brother, but tragically, 6 months later, Arthur succumbed to sickness and died. 8 years after this, Henry VIII's father died, and he assumed the throne, and promptly married his brother's widow, Catherine. Catherine became pregnant 5 to 7 times, but only one child survived, a girl named Mary. Henry made no effort to conceal his numerous affairs while married to Catherine, so inevitably he fell in love with one of his mistresses, Anne Boleyn, Catherine's lady in waiting.
Henry spent several years attempting to leave Catherine for Anne, but due to the Catholic Church's strict view on divorce, he was unable to. This is why Anne Boleyn was one of the most influential of Henry's wives. It was ultimately his desire to marry her that drove him to denounce the Catholic Church and declare the Protestant Church the official Church of England. The situation became more complicated when Anne became pregnant with Henry's child while he was married to Catherine. Concerned for the legitimacy of the child, Henry promptly married Anne in secret prior to divorcing Catherine. Anne's marriage to Henry was a short one, the main cause of its end being Anne's failure to produce a male heir to the throne, as she only had one child, a girl named Elizabeth.
In 1535, during his marriage to Anne, King Henry VIII stayed at the Seymour estate, where he first met his soon-to-be bride, Jane Seymour. It became more obvious in the early 1536 that he was losing interest in Anne, as he became increasingly infatuated with Jane. Henry did not want to divorce Anne. He felt as though this would question his credibility, so he had her executed on false charges of adultery, incest, and treason. Jane and Henry were married shortly after Anne's execution in 1536. In late 1537, Jane gave birth to Edward, the only male heir to the Henry's crown, and she died 2 weeks later. Perhaps because of this birth, she is the only wife to be buried alongside Henry. Catherine Parr married King Henry shortly after the execution of Catherine Howard. Catherine was different from Henry's 5 prior wives in many respects, the first being that her and Henry were distantly related through many different branches of their family. The second being that she ruled alongside Henry as not only the Queen of England, but also the Queen of Ireland. The final major feat that made Catherine Howard stand out from Henry's other wives is the fact that she outlived him by 1 year. Catherine Parr was given the honor of Queen Dowager following the death of Henry, meaning that she was to rule as the sole monarch of England until her stepson Edward VI would be coronated. Catherine Parr died in childbirth after King Henry died.
In conclusion, Henry VIII is often revered as one of the most radical yet effective monarchs of England, but much of his rule was dominated by conspiracy, selfishness, and death due to his 6 wives. These 6 women are often passed over in historical recounts, dismissed as uninfluential like so many that came before them. But the reality is, each of these women had a life, loved ones, political influence, and were so much more than just wives of the king.